Welcome back, everybody, to the 2024 Game of the Year podcast. Picking off today, last time we talked about disappointing games, catch-up games, games of all kinds. Now we're getting into the good stuff, the games we really enjoyed in 2024.
You know, we talked about the catch-up games, but when are we going to talk about the mustard games?
But what about the horseradish games? That's the best I got.
Oh, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't do that here.
Yeah, only Alec does that, and he won't be on this podcast. Well, Ryan, I would like to invite you to go first, since...
Me?
Yeah, relatively few games, so...
Oh! Okay. You know what? I'll do a game. How about the Famicom Detective Mystery Club Emio the Smiling Man?
That did look interesting. I didn't get around to playing it, but...
Yeah, it was pretty cool. You know, it's a visual novel, so there's not really a lot to say in terms of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really talk about it without talking about spoilers, and I don't really want to do that, because I think I'm the only person who played that here in this group, so...
Yeah, it's on my list. I feel like Captain America these days, adding fucking everything to my list.
Yeah, and this you don't have to boil, or whatever it is he says. We used to boil everything.
Play the clip.
Food's a lot better. We used to boil everything.
But don't get copyright.
Yeah, well, I played a bunch of Sonic clips in our Sonic movie discussion. We didn't get copywritten, so...
Oh, nice.
Usually Paramount is litigious, so that surprises me.
Well, like, I put filters on it so that it would look like crap.
So I know I watch Cosmonaut Variety Hour, and he does the Transformers movies a lot, and they are consistently copyright struck.
Well, it sounds like, based on the Famicom Detective Club, that this franchise has been around since the 80s.
To my knowledge, there were 2 games for the Famicom way back in the day, and then that was it.
Oh.
Eventually, they got remade a few years ago for the Switch, and this was the first time I think it was the first time they ever came outside of Japan.
Okay.
You know, they probably were made for lower budget because, I mean, there's not really a lot going on. You can definitely tell that this game had a bit more of a budget because there's a lot more movement and animation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of nice to see. It's what I've been saying for years. I'm glad that Nintendo has been tapping into, like, their lesser-known stuff, you know, or even, like, doing some more, like, original stuff, too. That stuff's been great for the most part. It's just, the reason why I always, like, bang that bell is just that, like, you know, when you have, like, a whole bunch of, like, different franchises getting brought back from the woodwork, it's just adding more variety to the Switch's library, you know?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have, if we're talking about first-party representation anyways.
Yeah. Because Nintendo's making more money than they know what to do with right now. So
yeah,
that might as well fund that back to lesser-known IP, because, you know, did Fire Emblem exist in the West before that Game Boy Advance one? Because isn't that one just called Fire Emblem?
No. Think that was its Western debut.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
yeah,
then
I
it
don't
was
think anything before then was localized.
Yeah, that would make sense. What I played of Awakening had a lot of... That was when the series finally took off, and that was supposed to be like the last one, right? Was Awakening? I guess my point being, like, these lesser franchises can take off. You never know. Metroid did well on the Switch when Dread came out.
Well, I feel like these days in particular, gaming is so widespread.
Yeah.
That niche stuff tends to explode way easier, because there's just more people to talk about shit like that.
Yeah. The Switch especially is such a huge install base. Did we want to maybe talk about the Switch 2 for 5 seconds, since that's been confirmed in the time since we recorded the Sonic podcast?
Yeah, the problem is I don't have anything to say about it until they reveal more of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, true. If we wanted to do a discussion when they actually do the little presentation, that's one thing we can absolutely do, but if we wanted to do a discussion when they actually do the little presentation, that's one thing we can absolutely do. I mean, right now, it's like, what's there to say about it other than it exists and there's a Mario Kart for it?
And they've decided to use a different Donkey Kong design?
That is very interesting.
I don't know if that's like, for fun, we're going to put the Mario movie designs in the game too, just as like skins you can pick or whatever, but yeah.
If they actually replace Donkey Kong with that, I would hope that it's for the game, because it'd be very strange to have that up against DKC Returns HD, like relatively close to each other. It'd be very bizarre.
Yeah.
It's almost as bad as the Shrek redesign.
Oh my god, they changed his vest.
I don't even necessarily think the new Donkey Kong looks bad. Like, it's an interesting take. It's just, would I want it to replace the old one? Not really.
Yeah.
Would I want it to replace the old one? Not really. I don't know. I would hope that it means that the new Mario Kart is going for something a little more stylistic.
Sure.
None of the other characters really look all that different, so I don't know, man. It's very strange looking.
Yeah. All right. Well, King, what's a game you enjoyed this past year that you'd like to talk about?
Quite a few of those. If I were to narrow down to the ones that I enjoyed the most, here's one that got a little bit of buzz, but not too many people talked about, was Another Krabs Treasure.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's a pretty damn cool game that I played.
So that's like a Souls-like or roguelike something, right?
Yeah. The way that I would describe Another Krabs Treasure, I don't think it's as difficult as Souls games often are. It's pretty difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And it's set up in a lot of the same ways in terms of how you have like a pretty simple attack option and a dodge roll. But I think what surprised me about Another Krabs Treasure is that, kind of like Hi-Fi Rush, I guess, in its graphical style, it has the energy of a 2000s licensed game.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of its aesthetic, not necessarily, well, in some ways also in how it feels to play. I'm not going to say it's janky, because it wasn't like glitchy necessarily, but it's a hard thing to capture in words. When you play it, there are some platforming elements that feel very simple, like it's clearly not the focus of the game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That kind of energy gives me licensed game feeling, in that a lot of licensed games of the time kind of just blended genres willy-nilly without any focus in one particular area.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this game is quite like that, because at its heart it is a Souls game. It's very focused on the combat. It's pretty difficult. And I think that it does that stuff well. The bosses are really cool. But the most unique part about it is that the shells you pick up are your shields, but they also give you different properties. Like, they all work different ways, and like one of them will give you a move that lets you spin on the ground, kind of like Sonic. Although I guess it functions on like slopes and stuff, more like Mario's roll from Odyssey, which is really interesting. As I said, they don't utilize it a whole ton, but there are some parts of the game where they're like, here's a slope and you can roll down it and build up a bunch of speed and rocket across large stretches of the terrain.
Yeah.
It's half level based and half like open world, quote unquote. I'd say more open zone than open world, where there are some sections of the game that are pretty linear and some sections that are a lot more open. They kind of fluctuate between.
Okay, I was going to ask if it was anything like that Messenger game where like it starts out, you think it's level based, but then it turns out it's all like interconnected later on.
No.
Doesn't sound like that.
There's a pretty even blend going on. It's probably more open than it is structured. If you've played Dark Souls, it is very similar to that kind of level design, but maybe a little bit more open.
Okay.
And it's really fun. I think it's really cute. It has an accessibility mode where if you don't want to deal with the difficulty, it's called gun mode, and I'm not joking about this, but you just get a gigantic gun and can one-shot everything.
Why have I not played this game? What the fuck?
It's very amusing.
I could be a crab with a gun.
Yeah.
It's like that old meme with the crab that's holding the knife.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because you start out and your main weapon is a fork. And you upgrade the fork over time, like you upgrade weapons in Dark Souls. You never replace your weapon. Your weapon's always the same. It's just your shell that you replace that gives you different, like, some shells will heal you. Some shells will have a lot of defense and can work as a shield. But the thing about the game is you're always picking up new shells because they have durability, and if they break, then you don't have a shell. And you don't want to not have a shell, because your shell is pretty damn useful.
Yeah.
So they litter shells around that all have different properties, and that's like the main differential factor that that it has that I haven't really seen a game do before quite in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's thematically fitting because the game's story is about how you're a little crab, like a hermit crab, living away from society with his little shell for most of his life.
Oh.
And it gets stolen by a literal loan shark who sells it off to various people. And the whole game is about you trying to get your shell back. But in the process, without spoiling too much, you actually engage with society. And in the process of trying to get your shell back, you go through like a little arc of like, you know, it's not a very subtle game. You come out of your shell literally and engage with the world.
Right.
There's also, because it's an undersea adventure, there's some like environmentalist stuff going on, like about polluting the ocean and stuff like that. The second half of the game is really wild in how you progress like deeper and deeper into the ocean. Kind of preys on a little bit of like oceanic horror a little bit. So if you're not into that, you may not want to play the game, because as bright and bubbly as it appears, it takes the Souls aesthetic as well in its undersea horror. So
you get to the trench and suddenly it's Bloodborne.
Awesome. Yeah, I thought that shit was really awesome, and how it uses like ocean pollution to like fuck up the enemies that you're fighting.
Oh,
I really don't want to give up way too much about the game. I'm just trying to make it interesting. If you haven't heard of it before, I think you would really like it. I think both of you honestly would really like it. It's
really? Even
cool
me?
Game. Yeah, I think you would like it. Like I said, it's not as like brutal as Dark Souls. It's a little bit more measured, I would say.
Okay.
And it does have some platforming elements. I'm not going to say that it's amazing, but that stuff does exist, and it is fun where it happens.
Okay.
There's some interesting stuff going on there. And the world is light enough that I wouldn't say it's entirely off-putting. Its narrative structure is a lot more traditional. It's not like pick up items and read item descriptions. Like there is a story happening with characters and stuff. So
right.
I think it's really unique and cool. And the final boss reminds me of the final boss of A Hat in Time.
Okay.
I know that's a really random thing to say, but it feels very anime. It ends in a way I was not expecting, but it was really cool.
It's like that scene
I think
from,
everybody should check it out. It's probably the...
No, I'm afraid your torment is only just beginning.
I know it got some buzz around the time that like Animal Well was coming out and Crow Country and stuff, but even then I think it's a little bit overlooked in regards to cool games, and it's definitely at the top of my list. I don't know if it's my game of the year. I still don't know that I've decided that. I'm gonna have to figure that out through the course of this discussion, but it's a contender, I would say.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the game reminding you of like early 2000s licensed games, because when I saw the trailer for it, for some reason it reminded me of the SpongeBob movie game on consoles.
It reminded me of that too. Yeah.
And now that I'm hearing that there's like, you descend deeper into the ocean, it sounds like there's even a trench level too. So yeah.
Games like that are what it felt like most. But I want to draw that comparison softly, because I don't think it's as janky as the SpongeBob movie game, which can be quite janky. I think it's a lot more well put together.
Yeah. Regardless, let's see what I've got. You guys are less likely to have played. I played a little bit of a game called Natsu-Mon 20th Century Kid. You guys heard of this?
How did you know that was my game of the year?
Is it actually your game of the year? Because we can talk about it later.
I've never even heard of it.
Oh.
I've heard of it. I have not played it.
Well, evidently I'm not an expert on who made it or where it came from. I know it's published by Spike Chunsoft, the Steins Gate people, but actually didn't they work on
novel?
It's not. They just published it. It has the feel of something that might have been a Kickstarter, but I'm not sure. But basically, it's in Japan, specifically on PlayStation, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lineage of these video games where you run around as a kid in Japan on summer vacation. And they made one, I think, for the PS1, the PS2, and the PS3. These games never came out in the West, as far as I know. And Natsu-Mon 20th Century Kid is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a ukulele type situation where like, actually Bloodstained is probably the better comparison, where someone who used to work on those types of games decided, I want to make that again, but thematically similar and legally distinct. So they did that.
There was another game that came out this year that was like that. It was like Ayudian Chronicles or something like that.
Yeah, Ayudian.
That was another game that I got, but I never just got around to playing. But apparently it's supposed to be like Suikoden. I thought about that, sorry.
In any case, 20th century kid, Natsu-Mon. You play as a young boy named Satoru who is on summer vacation. Mom and dad are in the circus, so they travel around the country and they settle down this town for the equivalent of his summer break. So he's basically spending his summer vacation in this little town. There's a mountain, there's a bay, there's a little island off the coast. There's like several little settlements around. Again, I've never played the games that it is inspired by, so I'm not going to have a lot of comparisons to make there. What it really kind of reminded me of was Breath of the Wild, most of all. Like the core moveset, minus the combat, of course, but it's kind of like you can climb on things, there's a stamina meter, it's open world, and you kind of just go around exploring and talking to people. You could do side quests. There are landmarks you can discover. You can find gemstones and sell them for yen. Sort of the overarching plot is your parents missed their payment on their last lodging and they owe 30,000 yen, otherwise they have to close the circus. So
No.
there's sort of a subplot of you over the course of this 30-day August vacation trying to make up the money. I didn't finish it. I only had a chance to start it before we did this podcast, but it's cute.
Is
It has
this
a very...
only on the Switch? Because it keeps bringing up Switch stuff.
It's on PC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I recommend you play it there because you can actually customize the control bindings so they're not ass like
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild.
I mean, I barely use my Switch these days.
Yeah.
After getting a Steam Deck, it has pretty much killed my Switch. Outside of a few, like, I'm gonna buy Xenoblade X probably, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But the game's cute, you know, like it's very accessible. It's like slipping into a warm blanket. It's just, and you can hear the cicadas buzzing all day long, like it's an episode of Evangelion or something. There's only kind of like one tiny complaint I have, and that I'm going to guess that this game originally was not intended to have a Western release or a non-Japanese release because the voice acting is only Japanese. And from what I can understand, they patched in English text later. Maybe they deferred it, like how Persona 5 came out in 2016 in Japan, then came out a year later in the West. But, you know, like, it's really not that big of a deal. Usually I get angry at that kind of thing when Bandai Namco publishes a new Digimon game and they can't be asked to dub it. But in this case, this is like a smaller game. It takes place in Japan, so it's like, whatever, I'll give it a pass. The voice acting's good from what I can tell, not speaking the language. But if you like Breath of the Wild, because like you always hear about how Miyamoto was inspired to make like Legend of Zelda from just exploring around the backwoods of Japan when he was younger. This is kind of like a way of experiencing that in a way. Yeah, and it's just kind of fun to run around and see where you can go, who you can talk to. Can I climb that? And you upgrade your stamina by doing side quests and stuff, and then you can go to more places. And there's just enough of a time crunch going on that you feel like, I mean, like you can change the time scale. It's kind of like Majora's Mask where you can make it go slower if you want, but you know, it's different, and I haven't played anything like it before. It's worth checking out if you like more modestly budgeted games. If you've worn out your copy of Breath of the Wild and Taka, this is kind of like a more relaxed version of that. So, yeah.
Neat.
It looks cool.
All right. Who's next?
Whoa, it's funny that you brought up a game that's supposed to give you the summer vacation feels, because I also played a game that kind of gave me that.
All right.
And it was another code Recollection.
It's another game I want to play.
Which I think that wins the award for like the most creative name, because it's a collection of games, and it's their games about remembering. It's a recollection.
Oh. See, I heard
It
that
tickled
title
me.
and I thought it was like a Kingdom Hearts
No.
mobile game or something at first.
No, it's about a machine that literally like alters your memories and shit. So
Okay.
yeah. It's a collection of 2 games, remakes of 2 games. One of them was a DS game, and then the other one was a Wii game that never got brought over to the States. I think it got brought over to Europe. I could be wrong. I just know that this was the West's first time actually getting this game. Second game. And I thought they were both pretty good.
All right.
Playing this kind of reminded me about how strange the DS is as a console.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite consoles ever. Like, the library is fucking stacked. But it's like, we're in an era where we're never going to get games like that ever again, you know?
Yeah.
Where
games
it's
with
like,
stylus controls, you mean?
well, I mean,
those kinds of
there's
gimmicks.
games with stylus controls, but also games that like kind of use the hardware as a means to solve puzzles or a means to progress. Like there were puzzles in like Phantom Hourglass and Hotel Dusk where it's like,
when
oh,
you close the lid.
yeah, it's like figuring that out without a guide is just like the fucking big brain, like, whoa, like you feel so smart. The first game in this series had a lot of stuff like that. So I heard from a lot of people who liked the DS game. They were kind of disappointed that, you know, the first game in this collection. Right, because it's more, you know, you walk up to a thing, you move your little cursor around, you press a button, so it's not as creative as the DS game was.
Well, what is the core game loop of these games? What kind of games are they?
I mean, they're like third-person puzzle games, I guess.
Okay.
The first game involves you exploring a mansion with a ghost who does not have any memory.
All right.
And then the second game is literally a who poisoned the water hole.
So it's like the Outbound Ghost.
And I am not joking, because like the main character goes to a lake for her little summer vacation with her dad and a bunch of his coworkers, and then you find out the lake has been poisoned, and you have to find out why.
Somebody poisoned the water hole.
And there's like a whole conspiracy and everything. So I have not played the DS game, and I have not played the Wii game that these games are remakes of. So I was just kind of like taking it in as like their own thing. And sure, like gameplay wise, it's nothing really outstanding. Like there's some creative puzzles. These kind of games I feel like is if you do play more for the story, I guess.
Yeah.
You play for the story, you play for the vibe, and for whatever it's worth, I thought both of these stories were really good, and I thought the second game was actually really charming. So I liked them. And again, bang on this drum as many times as I can. Cool to see this IP get some love and recognition. Yeah, I don't know. It was good. It was short and sweet.
I always want to play games like that on the DS.
Yeah.
So I know that it was weird. I don't know if you've played 999 before, but
I know what it is, yeah.
that game had re-releases, and it's interesting because they like added voice acting and stuff. But at the same time, there is like the game's most pivotal moment relies on being on the DS. The way they do it in the remaster, like, works. It's fine, but they pretty much were in a losing situation in that regard. And that's the example I always think about when I think about, like, DS remasters, is that it's just unfortunate that probably the most unique and memorable games were the ones that used the hardware in an interesting way.
Yeah.
And translating that to other systems is just kind of never going to work.
Yeah.
The World Ends With You was another one where it just, like...
Oh, yeah, they remade that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
They had to, like, use, like, one of the analog sticks to replace the stylus or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a blessing and a curse because, like, on the one hand, it is nice to have games that don't rely on gimmicks.
Yeah.
Because, like, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks are a little... I like those games, but they're also kind of hard to come back to. They're kind of like loaded up the butt with a bunch of gimmicks. Like playing the spirit flute always felt finicky.
Yeah.
And I never really cared for that.
Fun fact, I made it to the final boss of that game, but could not fight it because I just could not get the fucking flute to play that last tune. I swear it was like impossible. And that was after like a lengthy train combat sections, and it was like 11 p.m. on a Thursday, and I'm just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to bed. And then I never came back and finished it.
I mean, I really like Spirit Tracks, but I also don't blame you for that.
Yeah.
You know? But there's also like another game. It's literally, what if we took the Wizard of Oz, made it into a JRPG, and you move the character around by rolling a ball with the touch screen? It makes no fucking sense, you know? So it's like on the one hand, it's nice to not have games like that because they kind of feel like gimmicks for gimmick's sake.
Yeah.
But then, like, you do have other examples, like in Hotel Dusk, and I would take your word for 999. I have not played it, so that actually, like, uses the hardware to its advantage. There's not really any other consoles that do anything like that, and we probably never will get anything like that because everything's so streamlined now.
Yeah. That was kind of...
I've been feeling similarly. It's hard to know whether the nostalgia for those kinds of things is like, because I guess as you said, it's not like the DS always had good gimmicks, but like the ones that used it well are unlike anything that I've played.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It seemed to me like the lesson that people took away from the Wii era. I mean, like, obviously we have like virtual reality now, like VR headsets and the wireless dongles and stuff, so motion controls aren't dead per se, but like the Wii gave everybody their first impression of motion controls, and the tech wasn't quite ready for anything too expansive. And then you have games like Donkey Kong Country Returns that felt like they had to shoehorn in the stupid waggle gimmicks, even though it didn't really make sense. But it's the Wii, so we gotta do it. And then there's, I don't know if you guys have ever played Creature from the Krusty Krab on the Wii.
not on the
like,
Wii, no.
It's like the same as the PS2 version, except they replace a bunch of contextual gameplay elements with random waggle, and a lot of it just doesn't work. Like you steer the car in the stupid racing levels with the Wii remote on its side. There's this stupid thing where you hold the Wii remote like a handle. There are like these parts where you have to like spin these cranks to open doors or something.
Yeah.
And you have to like you have to figure out what orientation the game intends for you to hold the controller while you spin it around like the crank handle, and it was just the worst. I'm glad that kind of shit is gone now, which I think is kind of what you were getting at, but at the same time, there will never be a first-person shooter that controls or plays as well as Prime 3, in my opinion. Like, that kind of control scheme is just dead now. I think the Prime 1 remake had something like it, and there's Half-Life Alyx for VR. But
yeah, I was gonna say, I guess VR games kind of do that, but you kind of like, I don't know what the VR scene is even like these days.
Yeah, it seemed like there was kind of like a gold rush for a lot of developers to get in on that, a lot of Kickstarters, and then it was kind of one of those things where the design expectations and user expectations just aren't set yet. It is kind of like the Wild West days of the early Wii, where people were just doing anything. And a lot of it.
VR to me feels like, I think one of the things about it is that it feels like an entirely different fork of technology. Like, in some ways, when I was playing VR stuff, like VR chat or whatever, we put them in video games space because there's not really any other place to put them, but they like feel like this entirely different experience sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it never really took off in the games space, because like there are VR games that are very traditionally video games, but like I said, some of it's just like you are in like a simulation of real life, like the fucking Matrix. Like VR chat, I don't know if you've done VR chat on a VR headset. It is a little scary.
Really?
Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Scary. You'll need
Because
to
if you have full body tracking with other people, you can see other people's real movements as they talk to you. And it is uncanny. It's something that you cannot describe unless you have experienced it yourself.
Like you see
It's
people
very
scratching
uncanny.
their nose and scratching their butt
Yeah.
in their fursuit avatar.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Okay.
fucking weird.
I always wanted to try VR and VR chat, but I don't have a VR headset or the space for it.
Well, that's another thing, is that it's ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
Even like the lower end headsets are still the price of like a cheap console these days.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if virtual reality grew to be more accessible in terms of like being able to afford it, there's technically two costs to VR. It's like you got like the money, but then you also have to have the space for it.
Yes.
With the Wii, you just you put the box on a shelf somewhere, you plug it in, and you're fine. But with VR, it's like, nope, you got to move. It's almost like the Kinect, where you have to like be in a clear area. You have to make sure that like everything's out of the way so you don't trip on anything. It's a lot, you know?
Yeah. You don't want to land on your face while you're in the middle of doing the Han Solo gay dance for Star Wars Connect. Yeah. Well, anyways, I think you're up next,
Did you
King.
play the Han Solo gay dance on Star Wars Connect, Michael?
No, I don't think I've actually ever played a Kinect game. My dad got one when it came out with like Kinectimals, and I don't think he had Jillian Michaels' Fitness Adventure, but we had like a couple of Kinect games, and I don't know, I just never played them because I was annoyed that Microsoft was encroaching on Nintendo space because I was a Nintendo fanboy back then. So yeah, I mean, there's probably a reason Kinect games aren't still being made. I don't know how good most of them were. I heard that the what was it called, Rare Sports, like Rareware made a couple couple of sports games for the Kinect that were supposedly pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of the rest of it was stuff like Kinectimals or Jillian Michaels' Fitness Adventure, which may not even be a Kinect game. It just sounds like it would be one.
What about Sonic Free Riders?
Oh, yeah.
As somebody who had that game, because we had to connect, that was an experience. Did not work ever. And we had a lot of space to work with.
Yeah.
It did not work.
Yeah, and it just seems like more and more of this industry is becoming stagnant and relying on ideas and formulas that work, because when people think of motion controls, they think of games like Sonic Free Riders or the early Wii games, and people don't really they kind of want something safe and comfortable, I guess.
I mean, it's even still kind of prevalent today with like games that kind of use like gyro controls or motion controls for like the Pro controller or the PS5 controller, you know? And even then, like, I know people like aiming with gyro, but like it kind of feels like when it's not used for that, everything else is just a gimmick.
Yeah.
You know? Because like the Switch has like HD rumble or whatever, but like I've never played a game that really uses it very well, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like it's a cool idea, on paper, sure, but like sometimes it'll vibrate hard, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll vibrate lower on the controller than it would higher on the controller. That means nothing to me.
Yeah, I'll take that, because like you look at a lot of games from like the 6th generation, and a lot of the times like only like 2 or 3 mechanics will actually rumble at all. So I'll take HD rumble over that, because like people always say I'm weird about rumble, but part of the reason it's like you're playing a game and then a bomb goes off and suddenly it's like a nuclear reactor is shaking in your hands. It's like, where the fuck did this come from? So I always turn it off. But you know, like HD rumble on newer games is usually pretty good.
I have the perfect transition.
Oh boy.
Have you played Astrobot?
Oh, why? I have
Because
played
this
Astrobot.
slots right into our discussion.
You know,
of,
oh
like,
my
Yes.
god, I don't know if I can talk about Astrobot right now. I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
Because it's my game of the year.
Oh man.
All right.
Oh man.
So we can save it for later then.
It's the perfect transition.
I know.
Yeah,
You
fuck it.
ruined
But it is the
everything,
perfect
Ryan.
transition.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Astrobot. Astrobot was
All right.
so fucking good.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was very good. I liked it a lot.
I did not think I would like this game as much as I did, you know? But I loved it.
Why is that?
Well, I don't, because like
It's a Mario
on the
game, that's why.
Well, because like, little column A, little column B, but like when it got revealed, it just kind of looked like another platformer, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I can see
like
that.
nothing wrong with that. I was curious about it, sure. And like the little PlayStation Easter eggs were kind of nice, but like it felt like as if the game just kept getting bigger and bigger in terms of like adding more and more content. Like there's always new levels being unlocked. So like you never really knew what to expect.
Yeah.
And like you have like a small pool of power-ups that you get like in the levels, and it almost felt like as if they were always being used in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that never got stale. So I'm like, oh, okay. So like the game constantly kept me on my toes. You know, I said this last time where it's like there weren't a lot of games that kept my attention. And Astrobot never let go, because it always had like something new to say, something new to show me, and it was fascinating. You know, not using this as a club to like beat down something like Mario Odyssey, because like I like Mario Odyssey a lot, but like when people were raving about that game, being like, oh my god, like Mario's back, oh my god, the magic of Mario's back, and I played it, I'm like, yeah, no, that was good. But I didn't feel that, you know? I didn't feel like what made that game so breathtaking for a lot of people. Mario Wonder was the same way for me, where everyone's raving about it. I played it, I was like, yeah, no, it was good. But this one I understood, you know? It just impressed me, and it never stopped. And it was really cute and charming.
I think the most impressive thing about Astrobot for me is the level design, and not necessarily in a strict sense, but like the structure of it is very deceptive, because in a lot of cases it's pretty simple platforming going on, but there's always like several twists that happen on your expectations that just make them all feel really explosive and memorable. Like I always think of the fucking tree level.
Yeah.
Because as starts out really simple. There's just this sapling in the middle, and kind of you run around and get the bots, and then you grow the tree to life, and then the level turns into you scale a giant tree who is adding lyrics to the background of the song.
Yeah.
Like a cappella lyrics, basically. And there's shit like that in almost all the levels that made it so that I can remember almost all of them, even though a lot of the gimmicks that they use, I'll agree that they're all really fun and they make the most use out of them mechanically. But a lot of them are also like feel pretty standard in terms of like platform repair. I've just maybe played a lot of platformers, I don't know.
I mean, one of them was literally just Astrobot gets inflated and he flies up like a balloon.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's literally like the first one that you get, you know?
I do love that power up though, because of the way that it flows well. I really love the aspect of that power up where you can manually deflate it, and if you hit the ground, you bounce back up again and can reinflate.
Yeah.
It feels really good. Inflation feels really good. Quote that.
You know, if I could use a food metaphor for this game,
Yeah.
you know, it would be vanilla ice cream, which it makes it sound basic, but then this game shows you like all the stuff you can actually do with vanilla ice cream. Like you can make it into a sundae, you can make it into a chocolate vanilla swirl, you can mix it with all different types of flavors and add all sorts of different things to make it work, and it's awesome. Because like really, it's a pretty by the books 3D platformer, you know?
Yeah.
But like it has like an idea and it just goes the extra mile with it, you know?
I think the details really make the complete picture here.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty rare we even get a platformer with this high of a production value, even from Nintendo.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Mario Odyssey came out 2017, 8 years ago, you know?
I mean, it looked
I think
nice
in a
at the
lot
time.
of ways, some of the things these levels do visually are like, because it's on the fucking PS5, it's even going beyond what Nintendo can do.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
you know what's funny is that, like, with the PS5, and I kind of feel like as if this has been a detriment with Sony for a while, where they're just like, they're focusing so much on how photorealistic they can make their games look. It's like, look, you could see the pores on this person's face.
Mhm.
You can see, like, the micro strands of hair on this person's face. And I'm like, that does not impress me. But then when I'm playing Astrobot and you're in that level where you could, like, turn, like, super small and you run around with the little robot rats, that shook me. I'm like, oh my God. Like,
Well, yeah, I think
no
I
detail
totally
drops.
agree with that in the sense that, like, it's like when you get into the improvement of, like, anything similar to this. Like, I guess when you get into the weeds of, like, audio quality, there is a point at which you need to know your shit to know when it's different.
Yeah.
Because, like, when it's really shitty and then it gets better, you're like, holy shit, this just jumped up like 10 times in quality. But then when you get like higher and higher and higher, you're like trying to figure out what the differences are. And when you notice them, you notice them.
Mhm.
That's kind of how photorealistic graphical quality feels these days, where like clearly huge leaps are being made. But the more and more that this happens, the more that we approach reality, the more it's like, well, it becomes less and less impressive.
Yeah.
And because Sony keeps pushing this with the same kind of photorealistic games, when they do something like Astrobot, then it's like, holy shit, the tech is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're iterating on something that doesn't usually get this level of polish, because
Yeah, it's
the
usually
people,
targeted
it's
for younger
either
people.
like platformers are usually from like indie developers, or they're from Nintendo, who's like 2 whole generations behind still, basically.
Yeah.
Or they're from Nintendo, who's like 2 whole generations behind still, basically. So it's like Astrobot, I think, also was very unique in that way, and maybe part of the reason it blew up so much is because getting a 3D platformer that is that detailed is quite rare.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it also kind of reminded me of? And this might be like a weird thing. Do you guys remember when the GameCube was first revealed, there was a tech demo called Mario 128?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
this
the
game kinda
basis
feels-
for Galaxy.
Was it the basis for Galaxy or Pikmin?
Well,
One of
like
the
there
two.
were both of them. It was in 128, you run around in a Planetoid with all the
Mhm.
little Marios, and people are like, when's 128 going to come out for the GameCube? And instead they got Sunshine. So that's part of the disappointment with Sunshine at the time, was because it wasn't that game. Yeah, go on anyway.
But yeah, it's just like you have all these little dudes running around and you kind of use them to get to different parts of your little overworld, you know?
Yeah.
To find like more little dudes or more collectibles.
That was satisfying. I think the entire system feels deliberately like an Ape Escape homage because of how they introduce the idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
You like kick them into your hacky sack or whatever, and the first world ends with an Ape Escape roundup.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that homage world, I kind of realized that from what little I've played of Ape Escape anyway, the level design sometimes can feel like the way that you collect your collectibles feels very reminiscent of Ape Escape in the sense that the apes in Ape Escape are all doing their own thing and have their own little personality, and you go round them up.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some levels in this that are more open where you can get to the end fairly quickly, but if you want to get the most out of it, then you go run around and get the little collectibles. There's like an underwater level that felt like a Spyro level.
Yeah, I think I know the one you mean.
I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
There were a ton of levels that were very different. I think that helped its pacing as well because it wasn't all just linear gauntlets, which those did exist, but there's a lot of variety too. There's one where you like, the level starts out dark and stormy and you're like awakening the big guardian.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very memorable set of levels. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think the little bots, there's some discussion around whether it's like key jingling nostalgia baiting a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think that it's a fun homage. I think maybe there's some element of like PlayStation is not using a lot of these IP anymore, but at the end of the day, the intention from the developers was to celebrate all these things. So that was the vibe that I got.
Well, because last year was PlayStation's 30th anniversary, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess it was 1994 was when the console came out. Yeah.
Yeah, because like, I remember when I booted up my PS5, like I got like the classics PlayStation boot up, and it was like, oh, 30th. I'm like, oh, what? But, you know, I didn't grow up with a lot of Sony games, a lot of PlayStation games. So a lot of these, like I recognized a lot of these. You know, like I saw Dante, I know, all the stuff from Metal Gear, even though I don't care about Metal Gear. There's stuff that I recognized, but there's also way more that I didn't. And this is still my game of the year. So like the nostalgia bait or whatever, that had nothing to do with it for me.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The game is strong enough to stand on its own. Like, it's appreciated, and it did the thing that games like this are supposed to do, where it's like, oh, hey, this guy looks kind of cool. What game is he from? Oh, neat. I'm gonna check it out. Whoa, it's this, like, super obscure, like, PlayStation platformer where you play as a robot bunny. I'll check it out. Why not? Like, maybe it's not like its intention, but that's what I always used it for. Like, that's one of the reasons why, like, games like Super Smash Bros, like games like that, I feel like as if representing that kind of history is important because, like, you're showcasing like all of these new games and ideas to a whole new generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, that game was Brawl. Like, that made me go back and like play a whole bunch of older Nintendo games I'd never even heard of before. And then this game is kind of doing the same thing that Brawl did. I've known about games like Wild Arms and Legend of Dragoon, but like playing this kind of made me want to be like, okay, well, yeah, let me actually find time to sit down and play them.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done it yet, don't get me wrong, but I got them installed on my PS5.
Yeah.
So I'm ready, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important. Michael, did you play this game?
I did play this game.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't my game of the year like it was for you. I mean, like, part of that is I played more stuff this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we've talked about a lot of what makes this game charming and special. Like, the art style is excellent. The game looks beautiful in HDR. The gimmicks were fun. It managed to use the DualSense in a way, like I think the monkey arm thing was in Astro's Playroom.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of these other power-ups were too. It's been a while since I played that. But all of those were fun to use the controller in different ways and to have the adaptive trigger feedback and all that good shit.
Music was really good.
Lots of really interesting level themes. Like there's one that's like Japanese hot spring themed, if I remember correctly, where you like turn into a sponge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my favorite power-up probably. It's cute.
There are just enough clever little bits of level design here and there where you, like, there's a part in that hot spring level where there's like a random chimney that if you go down it, you unlock a secret pathway to one of those extra levels.
Yeah.
And it felt cool to figure out some of that stuff. This game also addresses a certain pet peeve of mine that I've complained about in this podcast a million times, which is that if you miss a bot and you want to go back and get that bot, you don't have to finish the level again. You can just grab the bot and leave. which is fantastic.
Very nice.
See how
It's
easy
a
it
platformer
was?
for the modern man.
There's some levels that if you get the secret exit, just counts as the normal exit.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's like maybe the one thing, because like with the secret exits, you kind of want to put them earlier in the level if possible. And there was that one pyramid level where you turn into a little sumo guy who gets launched out of the volcano.
Yeah.
Where like both exits were right next to each other, and it was kind of like, okay, if you already know where the secret exit is, you can like tighten up that run, just do that one. But if you don't, you basically have to replay the whole level again, which isn't too bad because the levels aren't super long in this game or anything, but it was still mildly
they also
annoying.
Thankfully telegraph when there is a secret exit.
Yes.
And there are several levels where, like I said, if you get the secret exit, they count it as getting the normal exit.
Yeah.
Like if it's at the end of the level.
Like that pyramid level, for example.
Yeah.
You can just take that and then you're done with the level and you've got everything.
Real quick, the secret exit that was the most annoying, because I didn't look anything up, was the fucking mouse level. For some reason, it took me like several hours of poking around that level. And that's like one of my favorite levels, but it kind of soured on me after how fucking long it took me to figure out where the secret exit was. Because holy shit, I don't know why I didn't think to go up there.
On the tree.
I just never did.
Yeah. Couple other things I want to note. This is the first PlayStation game I've played in maybe like 12 years where the soundtrack isn't completely forgettable. The soundtrack in this game
was really unique.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
One of my favorite songs in the game was they took the main anger theme from the new God of War games, turned it into like a dance remix.
Yeah, that was a really good song.
And the bass drop is Kratos saying, "Boy," which is pretty great.
I do got a bone to pick with the God of War stuff.
Okay.
Not gonna lie. Because, like, there are points in the game where you beat the boss and then you get, like, one of the big mascot characters. But it's supposed to be from, like, the different console generations, right? So PS1, 2, 3, 4, and the PSP.
Yep. Sure.
And when you get to the PS2 world, it's PS4
based on the
God of War.
I actually didn't notice that that's what they were going for, to be honest.
I noticed that pretty quickly, but
And it's
I think one of the reasons you didn't notice it was going on is because they picked new God of War.
Yeah, that's true.
That seems to me like a strange decision that maybe wasn't entirely motivated by the people who made the game.
Yeah, that feels like Sony executives said, we're launching Ragnarok on a PC later this year, so you got to make a Ragnarok level.
Yeah. So, that's not even me necessarily being, like, butthurt about classic God of War or whatever. But I was like, come on.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Now, that said, that level was really fun.
Oh, no, it was great.
'Cause I love the axe throwing gimmick. So,
But, like, you
give and you take.
You find, like, a character, like, one of the hidden bots is, like, she's sitting in front of a PS2. A PS2 with the TV that has a PS4 game. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then, like, little Jimmy's gonna be like, oh, the old God of War games, they must play like this. And then they go back, it's like, oh, no.
This
way
ain't
different.
no God hand.
I actually don't know if there were any old God of War references at all.
There wasn't.
That is really bizarre now that I think about it.
It's like they have characters. They have, like, the different Greek gods and everything. Kratos' brother, you know? Like, they could have done something. Or they could, like, for the PS2 representation, they could have done Ratchet and Clank, you know?
Yeah.
They could have done that.
I'm still butthurt that Athena wasn't the twist villain of Ragnarok, because it felt like that is exactly where they were aiming, and then they just decide to throw that plot away. Ragnarok gets more disappointing the more I think about it.
But, you know, this is also kind of what I was saying about earlier. You know, you see, like, representation in the game, and it kind of gets you curious. Because my favorite level that involves, like, the Sony characters is the Horizon level. And I never played a Horizon game before.
Yeah.
I thought that one was really cool.
That was cool.
You know? So now
You know what got the fucking Loco Roco level made me like, what the fuck is Loco Roco? Because that was a bizarre level.
Yeah, that was certainly very interesting. The other thing I wanted to mention, well, I guess two more things, then we'll try to move on. There are like levels that are based on the face button icons, like the cross, circle, triangle, and square levels.
Yeah.
And I want to say there's one circle level with lava in it and crumbling ground that made me want to unalive myself. I hated it.
Yeah.
Nothing quite reached that specific one, but, you know, it was like, I hate it in video games where, like, they're reasonable and have checkpoints at the right intervals, and then you get to a specific level and it's just like, no checkpoints for you. Do it all in one run. I hate that, which is part of the reason why I didn't finish that secret level in Corn Kids, because it's just like, come on, guys. You couldn't put a checkpoint in this? Who thinks this is fun? Like, a very specific small subset of people like that.
I'm sadistic.
I do not. But
I love
yeah.
pain.
I do
And
too.
I do have like a bone to pick with the whole key jingling, as we referred to it earlier, which is I like Astrobot. I like Astro himself. He's cute. He's a distinct little character for, like a platforming mascot. And I feel like that character in that world is enough. Like, we don't need the key jingling. Like, you compared this to Brawl, and Brawl is very specifically, like, from the ground up, a celebration of, like, Nintendo IP, until they started shoving in things that weren't Nintendo IP. But that's another story. Whereas with this game, like, they did it in Astro's Playroom because it was like a pack-in game for PS5 just to kind of demonstrate what the DualSense could do. And people loved it enough that they made this game too, which is great. I appreciate the celebrations as much as anybody else, and yes, it is kind of cool to see like whatever that game is from the PS1 where you play as a salaryman getting clowned on by ducks or whatever that game was called. Like obscure little games like that. What is that game? It's driving me nuts that I can't think of it, but it's got like a neon cover and it's for PS2. It's like a rail shooter or something. Like there are references to like obscure little games like that only came out in Japan, like that's good. But then you also have like Resident Evil characters, and it's just like the original Resident Evil came out on Saturn and Windows in 1996. It's not a PlayStation game. I'm a little more okay with the Persona stuff because that was PlayStation until like 5 years ago. But it's like you're celebrating Fat Princess and then you're trying to pretend that Leon Kennedy is a PlayStation character, and I'm like, no.
Well, I don't know if it's
that
necessarily
annoyed
about
me a little bit.
them being PlayStation characters, but it's more so that Resident Evil had like a lot of history with PlayStation. Because I'm pretty sure that the Resident Evil games sold the most on PlayStation. Am I
have
right
no
on that,
doubt
or?
about that fact.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's disingenuous for them to be presented alongside like actual PlayStation exclusives.
Because I think the
that
Yakuza
kind of annoyed
people
me.
are in too.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Like a Dragon.
At least that was originally on PS2. Like, I don't remember how many Yakuza games were on PS2, but I think it was like the first 3 or something, right? Like, so at least that was exclusive. There are 5 on the first console?
I think they went multi-plat with Yakuza 7.
Okay.
Like, technically Yakuza 0 is on other platforms, but it started on the PS3 in Japan.
Oh.
Okay. So I'm more okay with that than I am, I know, like it's a petty complaint anyway. It's not really like it matters that much when the game itself is good. I enjoyed the game, but it just kind of made me want to dig out Galaxy 2 at the same time, because this game really is just Super Mario Galaxy 3 when you stop and think about it.
That is what I've been
It's
hearing people
very
say.
similar to Mario
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, which is, I would very much appreciate if Sony focused more on games like this, because like the problem is that the budget and talent resources that you need to make like a modern AAA game has ballooned so much. I want to say when I was going to school that someone told me that the transition from 360 to Xbox One quadrupled the size of developer teams overnight or something like that. And I'm sure there was even more of that when this current generation started.
Yeah.
And now gaming is a lot more mainstream. It used to be, I saw a Bluesky bleat on this the other day. It used to be like games would cost like a lot in contemporary dollars. Like it was $60 in 1999 dollars as opposed to like $60 or $70 now with inflation factored in and stuff like that. And it used to be like you'd sell like 10,000 copies, but you'd sell them each for a lot of money in contemporary terms. And now you have to sell a game that appeals to everybody to make your money back because the prices remained relatively stagnant relative to inflation. So that's why they have to make games like the newer God of War or, more Last of Us type stuff, because that's what sells really well to a lot of people. So I hope what Astrobot can prove is that there's room in the market for more games like this on Sony, and that they don't just have to keep making...
Depends on how much money it took to make, because I don't think Astrobot sold phenomenally well. Like, I think it sold well, but it depends on how much they spent to make it, I guess, because if it is dramatically less than like God of War, then...
Like, God of War has like a ton of mocap in it. Like, you look at behind the scenes footage of like the making of the Uncharted games, and like they rented out an entire giant studio to do mocap stuff with. Like, I doubt there's any of that kind of production in Astrobot, so it was probably much cheaper. it's still cool to see Sony throw their hat in the ring, actually give Nintendo a run for their money, make a better Nintendo game than Nintendo has made in like a while. Because like there was that Princess Peach game this year, which I don't think any of us played.
I have not.
And that got mediocre reviews and was forgotten about. So I like me some Super Princess Peach, but I didn't play the new Peach game. So I don't really have much to say about Astrobot. It's a great game for what it is, but it's also like, I think you said this to me, you're on the server for Kincaid, but it's standard, I think was the word you used.
Yeah.
It's standard, but it's good standard. But standard nonetheless. So, but a fine choice for Game of the Year, sir. I totally respect your pick.
Thank you. I love it.
I don't think it's fine.
Oh.
I think you should have better taste.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's talk about the Zelda game. The three of us.
That's my game of the year.
The Zelda game.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't deserve to be called by its full title.
What? Echoes of Wisdom?
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean?
Because I'm making a joke for this podcast that is
Do
sometimes
you hate
comedic.
the new Zelda game?
I don't hate it, but I do have some complaints. And really, it should have been on the last session we did. But I know that you said that it was like one of the few games you enjoyed this year, Ryan. So we'll talk about it. I'll hear you out.
Yeah, we'll trash your tastes live on air.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah.
It's okay. The Sonic Frontiers podcast is still up.
I was defending that game too. And then
Yeah, it was just you and me.
there was that one comment on our Final Horizon podcast where a guy was like, "Thank God King K is here to lay down the truth about Sonic Frontiers. It sucked."
Did I even go that? How hard did I go? I don't remember.
You
I thought
didn't
you were
really.
pretty. Yeah, you're
You were
pretty
pretty
neutral.
even-handed.
Yeah.
You were just like the one person on the Final Frontiers. I know you've said your appreciation for the game has grown since because of the Shadow game, but I know, regardless. Okay, the Zelda game. It looked interesting from the trailer, and because like I've even said here on this podcast, like they should just make another traditional style Zelda game with the Link's Awakening engine. That's what this looked like in the Nintendo Direct, and then you sit down and play it, and it's trying to shoehorn in some design elements from Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know where to start with this one.
I guess what makes it different than traditional 2D Zelda?
Sure, like you've got the Echo system, which feels like that's kind of where the comparisons to Tears of the Kingdom come in, because like Tears of the Kingdom is all about creativity, building things with the goat arm, whatever it was called. It's been a while since I played that game, so I don't remember what the goat arm was called. And the Echoes are kind of similar to that in that it's meant to encourage creativity with how you approach combat sections, and it has the worst UI design known to man.
Yeah.
It's like they learned absolutely nothing, because like everybody seems to agree that the UI design for attaching stuff to your arrows in Taka was ass, pure ass, and yet they used the exact same menu design for this game. And it never gave them pause when you're like sifting through a list of like 300 things trying to find the one thing you need that you haven't used in forever. I thought it was really disappointing to see them recycle the overworld design of Link to the Past again. What is this, like the fourth time they've done that? I didn't think the plot was anything super special. The game has kind of like a weird pacing to it, because like you go into the rifts, that kind of reminded me of Twilight Princess bug hunting a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It was more visually interesting and had its own level design at least, and it's like every time you do one of those, they make you watch Try do his little dance with his little friends where they repair the rift, and it's like you can't skip it. And there's a lot of just like pace breakers like that just kind of add up over time and give the game kind of a dull, boring atmosphere. Like it feels like it takes too long to do certain things. I didn't think the dungeons, like they were okay, but I'm struggling to remember a single one, even though I played the whole thing. Like I remember the one where you're in like a forest temple or something, and like you keep going outside the dungeon to loop around in this little void and then go back in. I don't even remember what part of the game world that one was in.
This is one of the weird games where it's like the dungeons weren't like super memorable, but like I kind of liked the bosses quite a bit.
I'm trying to remember them. I know there's the one that floats and has like the hands.
Mm-hmm.
I think you fight it a second time and it's on fire or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's like a manta ray that throws whirlwinds at you.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, I guess the bosses were decent. Yeah.
The boss in the desert region was also like really fun because you would make like giant whirlwinds and shit like that and throw stuff at you.
Yeah. I'm really struggling to remember parts of this game, which suggests to me that it didn't really impact me that much. I don't know. I don't mean to be too harsh or be an asshole about it. It felt like, on one hand, they wanted to make a new traditional type Zelda game, but on the other hand, it's like, oh, well, now that Taka's out, we have to have a similar mechanic, otherwise it won't be as good. And then they came up with this idea of using echoes, which is fun for puzzles, but as far as the combat goes, like, the combat in this game just sucks. And I know that part of that is by design, like, they want you to find more creative solutions to encounters, but it's just way more fun to just slash at things. It takes a lot of resources to upgrade your sword fighter mode, and then you spend all those resources upgrading it, and then you get to the final dungeon and it's just taken away from you, which was kind of a dick move.
I didn't know that. Actually, like, I'll level with you. I kind of lost track and I didn't beat this game yet. I did. That's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It is I'm gonna be completely honest with you. This game did like almost nothing for me. The more that I think about it, it is one of the Zelda games of all time.
Hey.
I think, because I played it, I beat it, I think I did almost everything in it.
Yeah, me too.
And I haven't thought about it since at all.
Hey, you even got all the fucking stamps.
Yeah. I think sword fighter mode is maybe the best way for me to describe how the game feels completely at odds with itself.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the intentions behind sword fighter mode are at all. The way that it makes the game feel to me is that the game is not confident at all in its systems for combat, because the only reason you would add sword fighter mode if you were worried that the combat wasn't going to work without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like,
it kind of felt like a crutch.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah. In itself, it's like a whatever thing, but it kind of feels like it has ripple effects across the entire game because the game does not really feel like it can be entirely focused around its main mechanic. And I'm not somebody who was against this edition at all, honestly, because Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are like excellent games to me, and partly because of their systems. And I think that it's a philosophy that I would have loved to see done in a 2D Zelda. But it doesn't really feel like it's fully... It feels like a way that I described it when I wrote a video on it is that it feels like the Zelda middle ground that everybody asked for, and as such, it's unable to fully commit to either approach. It just kind of feels like it does both approaches badly.
Yes.
Or mediocre, and then it just kind of is nothing.
The
least
jack
to me.
of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
At least to me. It does not help that it is so iterative of past Zelda concepts either, and that is probably part of the reason it flew in one ear out the other. Like, I think about it, and I think that there are cute moments in it. Like, the Deku Scrub area is probably one of my favorite areas, just because I think it's hilarious that they're basically being drugged up by the spider webs. I think that's really funny to me. But at the same time, it's kind of like, outside of that, Gerudo, Zoras, when I was watching the trailers, I was like, oh, it's cute. They're bringing the River Zoras and like the newer Zoras.
Yeah, that was kind
together.
of interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
But functionally, it doesn't really feel all that different in execution. I don't know. Most of the areas I went to, I felt like I had seen before.
Yeah. Well,
and not just because it uses the same map, because there are differences that make it feel functionally different. And I think it's even in terms of east and west size, they have added a shit ton of
they did
new
add
areas.
some new stuff on the fringes.
But even when you go to the new places, because they're tacked on to the old places, I can't get a solid picture of the map in my mind, and I explored all of it. Because it all felt like well-trodden ground to the point where when I got to like Goron City, I was like, okay, this is Goron City, you know? And it's tough because I like to view Zelda as like a retelling of the same legend throughout time in which things change when you retell the story. So then I guess it makes sense that you keep getting the same kind of races and the same kind of stories. But that also applies to games like, I don't know, Majora's Mask or Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Like Majora's Mask, I mean, just uses shit from Ocarina, but that game clearly was able to get a lot more mileage out of that kind of reuse in a way that is... I'm not going to explain to you why Majora's Mask is unique, but you know.
Yes.
I think you get what I mean there.
Yeah.
Didn't you know that was Brian's game of the year?
It was!
Majora's Mask, yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I got many games of the year.
I don't know. Echoes, it just didn't hit.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it feels like I can't explain why. It just didn't.
Yeah. I'm kind of on the same page, and really it just made me want to bust out Link to the Past or Minish Cap again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Link to the Past because it just reminded me so much of it because of the layout. The fact that the maps are so similar just reminds me that I could be playing a better game instead. And then Minish Cap, because it was like the last time they had like a Hyrule set 2D Zelda with a unique map layout for once.
Yeah.
It was an okay game. I saw a lot of people like praising and glowing about this game, like, oh wow, the way that you can approach combat is so different. There's some neat puzzles, and yeah, all that stuff is in there, but it's like ultimately it didn't add up to a whole heck of a lot, at least for me.
You know, the combat in this game is very similar to V in Devil May Cry 5, where it is you put a thing on the field and then you let the thing do the thing, and you just kind of stand back and watch. Which, for dealing with mooks, I will admit it is pretty boring, but for some reason, when I was going up against the bosses in this game, I was kind of locked in, I guess. It felt like as if there were moments when the game was like, okay, you could use the sword fighter now, you can shoot down this person with your bow, throw a bomb at this guy, whatever. And I would just be like, no, I don't want to do that though. I want to work around it, you know? So maybe it was because I was doing like self-imposed challenges or whatever, or maybe I was making the game more difficult for myself. But I wanted to see like if you could actually take down these guys without having to rely on the sword thing. And for most of them, I feel like as if you can. And figuring that out was actually really satisfying, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'll level and say that like this game was not... I mean, I don't really know what I was expecting with this game. When they announced it, I thought it looked pretty good. I played most of it, and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. And that's really it, you know?
Yeah.
I thought the dungeons they were kind of okay, you know, coming up with your own solutions to solving puzzles and everything. That was pretty cool. You know, it was a completely serviceable, completely functional, enjoyable game. Maybe not every single game has to be like this 10 out of 10 Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom thing.
That's true.
Sure, like there is something to be said there, but at the same time, it could also run the risk of being something along the lines of New Super Mario Bros., where it's like, oh, it's the next one, it's the next Zelda game, you know? And I do not want that to happen. I don't think it would.
Yeah, I guess your line of thinking there is why I'm not really upset about it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we just got Tears of the Kingdom. It's like,
yeah,
I loved that game. And like, I guess if you're looking specifically for 2D Zelda, I'm not really. So when it came out and I played it and I didn't really care about it, I was just kind of like, oh, okay. And I moved on.
I think in hindsight, kind of looking back at like the Switch's library, I think it's kind of cool that we have like a brand new 2D and 3D Mario, Zelda, and soon Metroid. I think that's pretty cool.
You just reminded me. I don't want to interrupt. You just reminded me. Another reason I think it bounced off me is because if they didn't debut this damn art style with a Link's Awakening remake, it would probably feel a little bit more novel to me than it does.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the things I was kind of let down by when they revealed it. So, because I like the Link's Awakening art style, but like that's one of the things about Zelda it was always cool to see different interpretations, different art styles being used for these games, you know?
Yeah, well, I agree.
Yeah.
And that's why the fact that they already did this with Link's Awakening, it makes sense to me because that's already kind of what they do when you go from Link's Awakening to the Oracle games. But it's also this particular art style never fully worked for me anyway, because it debuted in a remake of a game where it didn't really even feel like it fit for me. And so my first impression of this art style already was kind of negative. And so then they reuse it for a game which I don't even know uses it for anything other than it just kind of uses it. Just kind of made the bad taste linger, and visually it was never really that fun to look at for me.
Yeah, and I guess that's another thing too, where I feel like every version of Hyrule kind of has like its own set piece or like its own thing to make it stand out, and this game didn't really have anything like that.
Yeah.
I'll level, I did not know that this was actually using the same map from A Link to the Past. I didn't know that.
Have you not played A Link to the Past?
No, I have, but honestly, that's a game.
It's a little like, if you haven't played A Link to the Past in a little bit, or like you're not as familiar, you do kind of have to, like, outside of a few specific areas, because of the new art style, it is a little bit hard to notice sometimes, but...
Also, A Link to the Past was never really my jam. I'll shoot straight. I never really loved that game. So I never really played it a lot.
Me either.
So, wow. I remember people got big mad at you for no reason. So,
in retrospect, I feel like I explained myself poorly, but I have not changed my stance on A Link to the Past. Really, I think it's a bit.
Yeah,
it's good. It's not really my thing necessarily. I probably like
better
A Link
than
to the
this
Past
game
more than this.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I had the Game Boy Advance version growing up, so that was a childhood game.
I did too, and then I found out it was a Super Nintendo game. I said, "What the fuck?"
I don't know, because A Link Between Worlds, oddly enough, feels like it has a more transformative gimmick than Echoes of Wisdom does.
Yeah.
And maybe that just speaks to the kind of player I am. But as I said, I fucked around with Tears of the Kingdom systems. There were points when I played that game where I was just fucking around making vehicles, and I didn't even need to.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even say I'm the kind of player that doesn't care about things like this, but the Echoes of Wisdom system, for me, sounds a lot cooler on paper than it is in practice.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ryan, what is your next game?
You mean my final game?
Oh.
I only have one more game.
We already knocked your Game of the Year out.
Yeah, pretty early too.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I might know what it is.
Yeah.
Is it that dinosaur game, or is it...
The dinosaur game?
It was like a Tales of something.
Dino Crisis?
No, it wasn't Dino Crisis. It was like Tales of Nazaro or something, and I thought it was like a Namco Tales of game, but it was like a game where you run around with dinosaurs or something.
No, I don't know what that is.